In the ever-changing landscape of geopolitics, the idea of secession has always fascinated people. While it's highly unlikely that any U.S. state would actually leave the Union, it's still an interesting thought experiment to imagine which American states might align more closely with Canada, both culturally and politically. Whether it's because of geographical proximity, shared values, or economic ties, some states might feel more at home under the maple leaf than the stars and stripes. Let's dive into 10 U.S. states that, hypothetically, could break away and become a part of Canada. Number 10. Hawaii. Hawaii might seem like an odd choice on this list, given its distance from both the U.S. mainland and Canada, but culturally and ideologically, it shares a surprising number of values with Canadian society. The state places a high emphasis on community, multiculturalism, and Indigenous rights, all of which are deeply embedded in Canadian political and social structures. Moreover, Hawaii has often expressed discomfort with federal U.S. policies that clash with its unique cultural identity and environmental priorities. While geographically isolated, Hawaii's progressive leanings and strong sense of cultural independence could, in an alternate reality, make it open to the idea of aligning with a country that values diversity and Indigenous preservation as much as Canada does. Number 9. North Dakota. With its wide-open plains, strong agricultural base, and relatively small population, North Dakota shares many characteristics with neighboring Canadian provinces like Saskatchewan and Manitoba. The culture of hard work, close-knit communities, and resilience in the face of harsh winters is a common thread across the border. Many rural North Dakotans feel culturally distant from coastal U.S. elites and could hypothetically find more familiarity with their Canadian neighbors. Economically, the agriculture and energy sectors already operate with a degree of cross-border collaboration, and the sense of identity tied to the land and weather would make integration with Canada a smoother fit than many might assume. Number 8. New Hampshire. Despite its fiercely independent spirit, New Hampshire has more in common with Canada's maritime provinces than one might expect. The state's small-town atmosphere, love of local governance, and rugged natural landscapes make it culturally aligned with parts of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. In fact, many residents of New Hampshire frequently travel north for vacations or business, and there is a mutual appreciation for outdoor activities like hiking, fishing, and skiing. While politically divided, the northern regions of the state tend to lean more moderate, making Canadian-style governance more palatable than in many other parts of the U.S. Number 7. Oregon. Oregon, like its neighbor Washington, is a bastion of progressive policies and grassroots activism. The state prioritizes environmental sustainability, public healthcare access, and education, principles that resonate strongly with Canadian values. The culture in cities like Portland feels closer in vibe to Vancouver, British Columbia, than it does to many American metropolises. There is a long-standing political movement within Oregon that dreams of creating a more independent or regionally aligned government, and in a fantasy world where states could realign freely, the idea of Oregon joining Canada wouldn't seem entirely far-fetched. Number 6. Alaska. Alaska is geographically isolated from the rest of the U.S., separated by vast Canadian territory. Culturally and environmentally, it bears a striking resemblance to Canada's northern territories like Yukon and British Columbia. The rugged terrain, reliance on natural resources, and Indigenous heritage all mirror the lifestyle and values found in northern Canada. Alaskans often feel distant from Washington, D.C., both literally and figuratively. Their self-sufficient, frontier mentality aligns with the Canadian North's emphasis on local governance and respect for nature. In the realm of alternate realities, Alaska might find more kinship looking east to Canada than south to the continental U.S. Number 5. Michigan. Surrounded by the Great Lakes and sharing a direct border with Ontario, Michigan already has deep-rooted ties to Canada. Cities like Detroit and Windsor have had a long history of cooperation, especially in the automotive and manufacturing sectors. Many Michiganders cross the border regularly for business, leisure, or family reasons. The state's economic and cultural exchange with Canada is so routine that the border often feels more symbolic than real. Given the shared climate, similar dialects, and mutual interests, Michigan could smoothly transition into being part of Canada, at least in the realm of this hypothetical world. Number 4. Minnesota. Known for its polite people, love of hockey, and long winters, Minnesota often feels like an extension of Canada. The cultural connection is especially strong with provinces like Manitoba and Ontario, where life revolves around lakes, forests, and community-based living. Minnesotans value public services, education, and healthcare, elements that are deeply embedded in Canadian governance. Additionally, the state's Scandinavian and German heritage aligns well with similar immigrant stories found across Canada. If cultural comfort and shared values were the only criteria, Minnesota would likely feel very much at home under the Canadian flag. Number 3. Maine. As the easternmost state in the U.S., Maine is closer to the Canadian provinces of Quebec and New Brunswick than it is to many major American cities. The cultural overlap between Maine and eastern Canada is significant, especially in the coastal communities where fishing, boating, and maritime traditions dominate daily life. The slow-paced lifestyle, emphasis on local governance, and tight-knit communities all reflect Canadian values. In addition, many residents have familial or business ties across the border. If ever the U.S. political climate grew too divided, it's easy to imagine Mainers turning to their northern neighbors for a more familiar and comforting national identity. Number 2. Washington. The Pacific Northwest is one of the most liberal and environmentally conscious regions in the United States, and Washington state embodies that spirit perfectly. With its strong green initiatives, support for universal healthcare, and emphasis on public welfare, Washington seems to reflect the values of British Columbia more than some of its American counterparts. Seattle and Vancouver are both high-tech hubs with thriving arts and music scenes, and there is already a great deal of economic exchange and cultural overlap between the two. Residents of Washington might feel a stronger bond with Canada's Pacific provinces than with distant capitals like Washington, D.C., making it a candidate in any hypothetical breakaway scenario. Number 1. Vermont. Nestled in the northeastern corner of the United States, Vermont has long been known for its progressive politics, love for nature, and independent spirit. This small, green, mountainous state shares many values with its northern neighbor. The people of Vermont often prioritize healthcare, environmental sustainability, and community living, values that strongly echo those upheld in Canadian provinces like Quebec and Ontario. Vermont also shares a border with Quebec, and French-language signs are not uncommon in some parts of the state. There has even been historical talk of Vermont seceding and forming its own republic, and in a fantasy scenario, shifting north to join Canada might not feel like a cultural leap at all. Of course, this is all purely speculative. The idea of any U.S. state breaking away and joining another nation is legally and politically implausible. Still, it's fascinating to consider which regions of the U.S. might feel more culturally or ideologically aligned with their northern neighbors. Whether it's shared values, geography, or economic interests, these 10 states each have unique reasons why, in some alternate world, they might just be flying a red and white flag with a maple leaf. If nothing else, this thought experiment helps highlight the complex tapestry of identities that make up the United States and how regional differences could inspire deeper conversations about governance, unity, and national identity.